Educators nationwide are facing what feels like obstacle after obstacle. Since the pandemic, we've watched teacher shortages, students struggling with grades, and an alarming climb in truancy rates. Louisiana's truancy rate totaled 40% during the 2020-2021 school year. But Joe Waddy, manager of mental health services of KIPP Schools, New Orleans, says that this issue is years in the making. People have been talking a lot about the truancy rate in Louisiana, but first, can you define what that even means?
Yeah, so a student or family is considered truant in Louisiana when they've missed 5 consecutive days of school within a semester, and for those school absences, not being able to produce medical documentation or any other kind of documentation that would allow that absence to be considered an excused absence. And so a lot of times we have students or families that might miss multiple days throughout the year, but for the definition of truancy, they're looking for students that are consistently absent from school.
What happens to these students if they're consistently absent?
A lot of different things can happen. The way that the system in Louisiana is set up is that the school has an obligation to do, a general outreach to the family every day that the student is absent unexcused. Those expectations from the school increase each time you hit a different threshold. So for example, at the 3-day unexcused point, schools are obligated to send a formalized letter to families. And then if they get to that 5-day point at any time, then the school is obligated to reach out and schedule an in-person meeting to discuss the situation. But then ultimately the system is designed to have the family referred to either truancy court or to a program called FINS to hopefully get some generalized support in place for the family. But the structure and system, the way it's designed, does kind of eventually lead to that ultimate truancy summons for the family.
So this is definitely a serious issue. Schools take this very seriously.
Yeah, it's a really serious issue, and I think it's one that, I don't know if it can be taken seriously enough. I think a lot of times we don't take seriously enough the individualized support that those families and students that are in those situations will actually require. And so, while the system is designed to be a little bit automated and give us consistency of when we're expected to reach out to families, I do think that there is a gap in the individualized support that can be designed and delivered.
Has our truancy rate seen an increase lately?
Yeah, the pandemic and also the Hurricane Ida of last year greatly impacted our not just our numbers of families or students that can be considered truant, but then also the amount of days in totality missed for truant students, that also increased. And it's something that New Orleans and Louisiana was struggling with before the pandemic and before Hurricane Ida. And so I think one of the real challenges is that we are seeing an increase in the amount of students that are disconnected, but we're also seeing an increase in the amount of support and also the complexity of the support that's needed to re-engage that family or student or reconnect them with one of our schools.
But you said this was an issue before the pandemic and before
Absolutely.
All these hurricanes.
Absolutely.
Why?
I think that if you don't have a reason to feel connected, loved, and supported to your school, that's a huge barrier. And I think, especially understanding that, we support and we school families from every type of economic background that exists, and, our community here faces a lot of daily events that can be traumatic and that can cause other barriers to being able to get to your school on time or feel comfortable being there each day. And so I think that there is a unique need for individualized support and individualized planning.
I mean, besides housing and, the pandemic, are there any other reasons why these kids are missing school? Is it a mental health problem?
There's so many things. I think the unique challenge that truancy presents is oftentimes the act of being truant isn't the real issue that's there. And so for so many students and families, identifying them through their consistent time missing school, a lot of times that is the opportunity for our school-based social workers or counselors to start to dive in and find out what those reasons are, because there are so many different ones that, yeah, for some students it is mental health. For other students, it's simply access to basic needs. For some of our students that are EL or English learning students, a lot of times, do we have everything translated for the family? Has registration information been made available in their native language? Have they received communication from someone in their native language? There are so many different factors that can come up, and so I think, like I said, it's the simple fact that this helps us identify that there might be a lot more there that's needed than just a reminder to come to school.
So I'm guessing there's not just one type of solution in a situation like this.
No, there isn't. But I definitely think that there are some consistent guidelines that folks can follow. And I think one of the biggest things that we talk about at our schools and that we talk about with our social workers and counselors is how do we celebrate and reward all forms of positive attendance. I think schools are really used to those programs where perfect attendance, you get this pizza party and this, but are we looking at ways to celebrate and support students where this might be the first week of the year where they made it to school on time every day? Or this might have been the family's first opportunity to commit to getting the student safely to the bus stop every day. And I think there's a lot of different opportunities for incorporating positive behavior systems with attendance and using that as a way to break through to some of our families that don't have that feeling of connection right now. Let's say I had to move because of the pandemic, or I was displaced because of Hurricane Ida. What is it that makes me feel connected to this school? Has there been outreach of that kind? And so, I just think making sure that we see the data for the concern that it is in general, but also seeing that extra layer of there are going to be groups and individuals within this list that we have to wrap our arms around a little bit more.
All right, so basically meeting kids where they are.
Meeting kids and families where they are, absolutely.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.